Why choosing yourself makes you feel like a bad person? What's going on there? Why does it feel so threatening? Why does it feel so conclusive that in the moment that I made a statement, I rejected a request, I did anything where I prioritized my well-being, my thoughts and feelings, that suddenly I am overwhelmed with this very strong emotional state that we can call guilt and shame. Those of us who have suffered this or lived years in this kind of strategy are basically in a constant state of self-abandonment. Maybe not constant, only constant when there's another person around. If we isolate and we get away from everybody else, sometimes we have a chance to just actually be with my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own preferences. I'm going to do the thing that I want to do. I'm not going to feel bad about it if we're lucky. For a lot of us, like just doing the thing that we want to do will create shame and guilt even when there's nobody around. Isn't that interesting? We will talk about that in a second. But basically, we're in this constant state of self-abandonment anytime any other person is around because we were conditioned to act that way. Oftentimes what happens here, what creates this state of kind of consistent self-abandonment is that our brains were raised and trained and optimized in an environment where we must go along with the thoughts, feelings, demands of those people around us. Otherwise, there would be like powerfully negative consequences. What do those consequences look like? Well, in extreme cases, of course, it can be like physical attack. It can be separation. It can be isolation. It can be pulling away of something that you care about. Might be like a doll or a blanket or a thing or whatever, some kind of punishment. This is something you care about, and I'm going to intentionally take it away because I want you to experience pain. I want you to experience discomfort. I want you to feel the powerful negative feelings of having the thing you care about taken away from you. That doesn't sound so awesome, does it? Unfortunately, it's super common. Okay? Now, that can get down a whole road of appropriate lines of punishment, and we need some kind of negative reinforcement cycle and blah, 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 blah. That's kind of a whole other topic, which we can talk about later. But because there are people that will do that in a balanced or regulated way, but there's a lot that won't. And those are the ones we're talking about today. We're talking about being in a situation where there will be your system is anticipating a very powerful negative sensation, a very powerful discomfort. If I deviate from the demands that have been placed upon me or the requests or whatever, right? I need to go along. And if I have an opinion, if I have a thought, if I have a desire, if I have some expression of myself that does not align with the demands or thoughts or opinions of those people, there's going to be hell to pay. And if this happens, well, basically at any time of our life, it's really not positive, but especially in the first section of the first 3 years of life, because the brain is developing so quickly and it's establishing so many new neural connections. And it's basically in a constant state of learning at very rapid, it's astonishing, really, because there's so much learning happening that time period. And there's virtually no wisdom. There's no perspective outside of what's happening right now. So these messages, basically there's no way for that system to reject a bad lesson. There's no way for that brain and that nervous system to evaluate a lesson that's being presented in front of it and say, this is bullshit. Like it simply doesn't have that ability because the blinders are too tight. It's like, this is just the life I know, and it's these people and it's these dynamics, and this is how I survive. So the deep down system, the subconscious, is focused entirely on survival, and it's like survival in this environment. with whatever tools I have. And because it's never known any other environment, it figures out how to survive in this one. And if there's big negative consequences for acting out, for being unique, for doing the thing that is your choice or your preference, and there's hell to pay, the system says, well, the best answer for this is to not do it. And understand how deeply that goes. It's not a conscious choice of maybe I won't express my opinion, although that one happens too. This is much deeper. Think of it this way, that, what is an emotion? An emotion is just an experience, right? We have data that comes into our sensory system and it arises, and then we learn later to label that experience with a name. We say, oh, this is anger, or this is fear, or this is anxiety, or whatever, right? We learn that much later. But before we have language and before we have this conceptual framework, we just have this experience that arises. And now, what happens if that experience acts? Like, what happens if I act on that experience in the way that it's kind of telling me to or compelling me to? Well, I do the thing, and then there's hell to pay. All this terrible stuff happens, and it's scary and it's dangerous, and I'm sitting alone in my room in the dark, and I'm crying, and nobody comes, or whatever, like some kind of scary discomfort, horrible thing happens. See, language hasn't even shown up yet. And we have a brain that says this particular sensation of I have a desire, or I have a need, or I have a craving, or I want to express. This sensation arises from the depths, and it kind of shows up in the nervous system, and I'm feeling it, and then I act on it, and then terrible things happen. What does my system do? It concludes that that sensation is dangerous, or that sensation will lead to danger. We don't even have language yet. And that nervous system has already learned that inner sensation will lead to ruin. It will lead to unsafety. And okay, how unsafe, right? I'm a small developing organism. Literally, our entire nervous system from birth is optimized around the idea of established connection with those that are big, strong, and powerful so that they can protect me long enough that I can grow into a functional adult. So if this sensation that arises inside me leads to separation, abandonment, punishment, starvation, whatever, yes, the nervous system says suppress it, ignore it, kill it. Don't even let it arise. The moment it makes a peep of sound, just squish it down. And first words haven't even been spoken yet. Now, if this environment continues throughout the early era of expressing, then we have further reinforcement of that lesson that me doing me listening to that voice inside and following it leads to ruin, leads to unsafety, then it's just another lesson. Right now, many, billions and billions of new neural pathways are being established, and all this learning is happening, and babies are kind of going out and exploring the world, and they're kind of innately selfish, as they should be, right? And so it's not like we have one point that, makes that person suppress himself forever. It's usually a theme. It's usually a pattern. And as they move into kind of like after age 3, they begin to develop a sense of self, identity, ego, even if you want to use that term. So that transition happens somewhere 3.5 or 4. And now we're in this point where they've got language, they've got curiosity, they've got the things that they're doing, and they do the things they do, right? And of course they're going to be selfish sometimes. And then there's negative consequence. And then they do this other thing that they want to do, and there's negative consequence. And then they're like, okay, maybe I'll hide the thing that I want to do, because doing the thing I want to do has a negative consequence. So I'm just going to hide. I'm going to sneak around behind their back and take a cookie out of the cookie jar. And of course, we're children, so we're not good at that. And so we get found out. And then there's even more negative consequence, because not only did you do the bad thing, but you lied about it or hid it or whatever. It's just like, I'm super trapped here. I can't even do tricky things to get to the place that I want to be. I can't even find a way. Well, sometimes. Sometimes kids are really smart, far smarter than most of us want to give them credit, and they find ways, right? Other times, they are not that creative, which is fine, but the conclusions they reach from that environment where they have basically never found a way to get outside this constrictive bubble, their nervous system reaches a point of hopelessness. It concludes there is no way out. There is no pathway to safety that coincides with my own desires or expressions. And so the suppression muscle starts getting used all the time until it's just this big ripped ox of a response, and they do it automatically. Okay, where does guilt and shame fit into this? Because that's usually what's going on here. What I see in people that are living with this kind of burden, this curse, is that the critical figures, the parents or clergy, religion, community, whoever it is, they're not even around anymore. They might be in a totally different country. They might be 3 time zones away. But that person still carries inside them this automatic reaction that if I do the thing that prioritizes myself first, there's going to be hell to pay. And so the mere whisper of it, the mere drop of selfish action creates this wave of guilt. I'm such a horrible person. I'm so selfish. I'm doing such terrible things. Oh, they're going to be angry at me. Then, I literally just saw this yesterday. And here's this person, and their body is shaking with nerves and panic and distress because what's going on? Their brain is predicting. That's what our brains do. It takes past lessons, turns it into a predictive model for the future. It's taking my past lessons and it's creating this predictive model that this other person, boss, family, community, whatever, is going to be angry at me. This person is going to be displeased with me. This person is going to be upset in some capacity, not with the thing I did, but with the thing that I am. Right? If it's the thing that I did, that might be guilt, right? I did something that doesn't align with the goals or whatever, right? My values or whatever, right? I crossed some kind of line as an action. That action crossed the line, wasn't ideal. We want to fix it. We want to make amends. We want to apologize. We can learn from it and go a different path. That'd be the guilt angle. Most of these people are not experiencing guilt. They're experiencing shame. Shame is not, I did something wrong and I can fix it. It's that I am wrong at my core. There is something wrong or amiss or broken or disgusting at my core, and I have to constantly be performing. I need to constantly be achieving what other people want so that I can earn their approval, validation, love, etc. Because if I don't, then what? Then they see who I really am. Then they see this broken thing, and then it will truly be rejected. I can't let that happen. So we have this shame bomb exploding inside this nervous system because they believe they crossed some kind of line, they made some kind of mistake, and they are predicting that someone's going to be upset with them. Why is shame so powerful? I mean, I say this all the time. It bears repeating because it's that important. Shame is so important because it's the mechanism by which we evaluate. It's literally, shame is the mechanism by which we anticipate social acceptance or the lack thereof. or social rejection, right? It's that spectrum. Basically, there's a spectrum between everybody loves me, everybody hates me. Everybody loves me and wants to pull me towards them versus everybody hates me and they're going to kick me out of the tribe and I end up alone on the plains of the Serengeti, eaten by a leopard, right? Like, that's it. That's kind of the spectrum. Shame is the internal mechanism. It's the feedback from the internal mechanism we have where we're making a prediction about where I'm going to be on that spectrum socially in front of the tribe. Now, it can be a tribe of one, but, this person, but it's generally this person, the people around them, other people like them, the greater community at large, anybody knows me, etc. Right? It's kind of like the brain has all these associations. This is the association network stuff. So the sensation we have of what we call shame and my brokenness and my wrongness is that I am predicting in the future that when the tribe sees me for who I really am, then they're all going to react negatively. And then I'm going to get all the negative consequences, not just from one, but from all. And that's terrifying because that's literally the difference between life and death. That's the difference between life and death for a toddler. That's the difference between life and death for a child. That's usually the difference between life and death for a teenager. And for most of human history, like literally most of the time that we've been on this earth as a species, that was the difference between life and death for adults too, for basically everybody. So our entire nervous system optimizes around this idea. I need to maintain my social status. I need to maintain approval from at least some of the people around me. And the more social status they have, higher social status equals higher social power. They call it social capital. The higher social capital they have, the safer I will be. Because if that person over there, who's of low social status, works in some job that people don't like or smells funny or people don't like them or whatever stupid reason that a tribe would degrade somebody, right? If 3 of the people from that family that are basically already kind of outcast or, low status, if 3 of those people testify for me, nobody cares. But if the superstar hero that's gone out and slayed the bison last week, if he comes and testifies for me, if he chooses me, then I'm okay, right? Because everybody admires him. If the person they admire chooses me, I basically siphon off, I gain some of his social capital, and I'm protected. This is one of the reasons that marriages have been so important for so much of human history. This is one of the reasons why pair bonds, marriages specifically, have been so important across virtually every culture on Earth where humans exist, right? And it also factors in a major way into who we find attractive on this earth and how euphoric that is, right? If I feel that I'm low, if I feel that I'm broken, if I feel that I'm at constant risk of social rejection, and I can get the guy that killed the buffalo to come choose me publicly, that creates a euphoric sensation inside my nervous system because I am chosen. I'm wanted, chosen, and prioritized. And the social capital of the person who is choosing me basically gives me status enough to make me safe inside the tribe and inside the community. That's one theory about how it works. I happen to believe this theory. I've never heard of one that competes with that enough to be compelling, but maybe it exists. Who would you be if all the fear, anxiety, and chattering thoughts finally went quiet?
Many people in daily lives, they are just holding themselves back.
And I looked up yoga retreats and all these different things, but nothing quite resonated.
Honestly, I didn't think about it. Just like, I'm going.
Felt like every emotions from every person was valid here.
Allow yourself to be fully yourself.
I think it was a contained environment where you could freely express yourself.
That's a big lesson. It's okay to get close to people. It's okay to share. It's okay to be vulnerable.
And no one will shame whatever feeling you feel. Nobody makes it bad or wrong or even uncomfortable.
They added more than it would have been one-on-one.
Don't be afraid. Don't worry about the money. It's totally worth it.
I did not have the capability of stating my needs and boundaries and possibly disappointing somebody. But in this moment, I could.
All right. So coming back to our core thesis, why does it feel so dangerous to choose yourself? Why does prioritizing yourself make you feel like a bad person? Well, because all of the messaging you've had thus far in your life, maybe not all, but at least the most important messaging, tells you that. It tells you that there's something wrong with you if you prioritize yourself. You are a bad person. You should be prioritizing me. You're a bad daughter. You're a bad son. You're a bad member of the community. You're a bad team player. You're a bad this. You're a bad that. Like there's something wrong with you, right? And the way that they send that message is to create negative experiences. All those negative experiences that you're happening to you, you deserve them. I'm currently living in a culture that like strongly believes in karma. And I've heard these tragic tales of people that basically have a really, really unlucky roll of the dice with life. And then the people around them are like, well, if this is happening for you, then that must be your karma and you must deserve it. And so we don't want to help you because we don't want your karma to rub off on us. And so truly tragic situations just keep getting more tragic because the community doesn't want to help, right? But it's, that's their belief system and it goes back thousands of years. But this shame dynamic is really important to understand here, is that if I prioritize myself, I suddenly have this explosion of guilt and shame. And that feels terrifying because it is terrifying, right? We just talked about that. That means I'm going to be alone on the plains of the Serengeti. But that also means that the massive, powerful compulsion I have to fix things, to do it right, to back down from my boundaries, to not express, to suppress whatever this is inside me, or to bend over backwards and put in 4 times the reasonable number of hours to fix the thing just so my boss will be happy with me. That's all super transactional. You're not being nice to others because you're just a nice person. You are enacting the behaviors that you think will get you back into their good graces. You are employing strategies that you believe will get them enough validation and approval from them that your shame will subside. I am not helping you to help you. I'm helping you to make this horrible feeling go away. And this is one of the tragedies that happens in kind of the push-pull of the anxious avoidant thing that so many people talk about on the internet. This is one of the tragedies of that dynamic, is that a person that is living with this burden that we're talking about today is oftentimes being pushed around by this terror of the shame state. And all of that being pushed around is incredibly compulsive for them and overwhelming. And if they don't get the resolution, if they don't get the approval, if they don't get the sex, if they don't get the text message, or they don't get the resolution of the fight, we don't get a repair right now, then their system will completely destabilize. They will just descend into tremendously dysregulated state. And now someone sitting on the outside, let's say that their relationship with shame is different. We're not going to say they're healed or gone or whatever, but it's just shame doesn't impact them the same way. They look at this person and they see what's going on. They're like, you're not here saying those things to me or doing this stuff with me because you actually care about me. You're here because you're trying to make all those difficult, uncomfortable feelings inside you a bait to go away. And this is the only mechanism you have to achieve that. So in some strange ways, it feels like I'm being used. And I'm not making this shit up. I'm saying this. I've literally heard those words from people that have been accused of being avoidant. And then they see these videos and they reach out to me and we work through kind of the dynamics inside the relationship. And because no one is teaching this stuff, they think they hear this message and they're like, I feel like I'm being used, but I'm so horrible. Like then their own shame begins, right? I'm a horrible person because here's my partner doing things and saying things and putting in all this effort for this relationship. And all the messaging I get from media tells me that this is what people do when they're in love. So I think they're in love with me, but it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like this is healthy. It feels like there's something strange going on here, because there is something strange going on. Well, not so much strange as just unspoken dynamics and motivations that can feel like manipulation, right? So all I'm getting at there is that like this is something that is a key part of many attachment dynamics that are dysfunctional, is that one side is taking actions because they believe those actions are the quickest way to dissolve or abate the uncomfortable feelings that happen inside. The only strategy they know to get it is to go do stuff, to go perform, to go self-abandon, to go people please, to go caretake someone else. And, there's a dead giveaway here. And the dead giveaway is this. They go do whatever the thing is, right? They bring you coffee in the morning. They make breakfast for you. They give you a massage. They buy you tickets to Fiji. They whatever, right? They buy you a great big lavish gift for your birthday. Okay? They do something. They do some grand gesture of niceness, of caring, of love. And then the way you test this is you just simply don't give them reaction. You just like, thank you, or that's nice, or and watch what happens. Do they dysregulate? Do they crash? Do they have some kind of strong, powerful negative reaction? If they do, why? If that was given out of the goodness of their heart, and it was a thought that they had that arose, it's like, oh, I was at the coffee shop. I was just thinking of you. Maybe you'd appreciate it. Here you go. And then you don't appreciate it. They're like, oh, I guess I was wrong. Like I still went through the effort and now I'm learning about this person. Maybe they don't like coffee on Thursdays, right? And it's just like, or they just say, here, give anyway. It's fine. Like, enjoy, don't enjoy. I like the act of giving. And you're someone I think about a lot. And so it's kind of a nice feeling for me. Oh, you don't appreciate it? Okay. Well, I'm sorry if this is an inconvenience for you, right? I'll try to do it differently next time. Help me understand what you like and don't like, right? There's not a big meltdown, but you definitely get a meltdown with someone that is doing this transactionally. You definitely get a meltdown with someone that is people-pleasing, is giving, is overperforming, because they're trying to abate or dissolve or suppress their own negative feelings, of guilt and shame, right? They're trying to do something so that their uncomfortable feelings will go away, and you are the mechanism, you are the vehicle by which they achieve that. That does feel manipulative. It is manipulative, and it's very dysfunctional. unfortunately, it's also super common. But like I'm not saying that to create shame and blame. I'm saying that to say this appears to be a widespread strategy that many people utilize. And if it's being utilized by a large number of people, that means someone's teaching it, or some, cultural mechanism is happening that's teaching so many people simultaneously. And then if it works for those people, then they go on, they basically teach their offspring and they teach the people around them. So it's like, this is a thing and it's happening. And if it works, then who are we to complain about, right? But the issue is that like people that call me, people that watch these videos, people that are like dealing with a major emotional disruption in their life, if this dynamic is part of it, we need to address that dynamic, because that dynamic is speaking to a large number of issues inside your nervous system that are probably optimized in a direction that you don't want. They're basically going to help you go the places that you don't want to go and keep you from going the places that you do want to go. So there's that. Okay, so let's say you are this person that is carrying around this burden, that has this maladaptive strategy that basically dominates your life and puts you in a position of self-abandonment and prioritizing others constantly. And every time you just do the slightest whiff of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to hold my boundary, I'm going to establish a boundary, I'm going to communicate a boundary, and then I'm going to defend that boundary because I'm going to defend myself. That anytime you even get close to that, your system dysregulates. And then there's, panting. There is hot going up and down the neck and the back. The fingers are twitching. The pupils are dilating. Like you're basically having a panic attack, because you are. Because that's what's happening. Your nervous system is predicting into the future something terrible is going to happen. And it's like, what can I do? According to your nervous system, you are about to get attacked. It is completely valid based upon the lessons it has learned up to this point. It is completely valid and appropriate that it would reach that conclusion, that something terrible is about to happen. Now, what do we do about this? There's a couple things here. One of them is the shame angle, right? How do we fight shame? How do we resolve shame? And it seems to be that the strongest mechanism we have to counteract shame, or to reteach or retrain the system around it, is we need to bring the system right to the point that the shame is alive, it is strong, and it is uncomfortable, because the system is predicting this negative outcome. We need to bring it right to that point, and we then engineer the environment, or we've engineered the environment ahead of time, so that you don't get the outcome that it was predicting. Okay? Example, if I say no to my partner is going to be super angry. They're going to rage out. They're going to disconnect. They're going to kick me out of the house, or go isolate in a room, or scream offensive words at me, or whatever. And all that's happening because I'm such a terrible person. I need to not do that. Because if I don't do that, if I self-abandon and I suppress that instinct and I don't say no, if I just comply and say yes, then none of that happens and I stay safe. Okay? What we need to do is we need to engineer an environment so that my partner is there, my partner is requesting something, and I say no, and my partner says, okay, I accept that. Easier said than done, right? Well, the first thing that comes up for me in that is that, like, if you're in a situation where you are unable to say no to your partner, you probably want to look at that, because that does not predict a good outcome. That's a very strong predictor of a negative outcome, not the outcome you want, that is painful and heartbreaking for everybody. And it's just a matter of time until that happens. Because maintaining an environment, remaining in an environment where you are unable to say no, basically the price you pay for that is boiling resentment. And boiling resentment adds stress to the system in a way that is very difficult to process and discharge. And when it boils high enough, it will explode. And you will do something rash. they'll probably just walk out or end the relationship suddenly. If we're going to make predictions about the future, and that has a lot of evidence to support that prediction, then it kind of makes sense to just like save yourself time and energy, roll the clock back and say act sooner rather than later, and either resolve the issue, resolve the resistance to saying no, figure out why you don't feel safe saying no and deal with it, which is kind of what I'm talking about here, or leave and say this situation is not conducive to my well-being or the future well-being of either of us. And so I am making the call now that I am exiting this situation the most graceful way possible. That's one option. Okay, so what we're talking about is resolving shame. And the way we resolve shame is we have to basically get to the point where a system is anticipating maximize shame and then make sure it doesn't happen. Now, that's one rep. Do 100 reps. Watch what happens. That shame will dissipate. That shame will change. Your response to that shame will change. Many things will actually happen. It's very high likelihood that if you can engineer that situation and do 100 reps, that shame will stop feeling shameful. You will not respond to it with huge compulsive reactivity, and your system will not panic when it is being threatened. You get all 3 for the price of 1. Well, no, you get all 3 for the price of 100. So, well, maybe that's a deal, maybe it's not, but it seems to be the only way that works reliably. What else can we do? Well, practice, and this actually feeds very much into what I was just saying, is that start practicing this sentence. No. Period. No is a complete sentence. No is a statement that you are fully allowed to make. No is a powerful word. It's a powerful idea. And it is something that is used to defend your system. Because see, this is one of the parts of people pleasing that a lot of people don't get, is that when you're people pleasing, when you're caretaking, when you're prioritizing everybody else because prioritizing self feels so dangerous, well, first off, you're in this massive array of transactional relationships, just trying to keep regulate your emotional state. Not great. But the other thing that happens is basically you are in a state of abuse. You are abusing yourself. There's one relationship among all these where you are chronically bringing neglect, abandonment, subjugation, critical judgment, right? And that's self. So people pleasers, or people that utilize the people pleasing strategy and the caretaking strategy, frequently miss this part, is that you are not actually being nice to this one. You are not actually pleasing to this one. You are not actually caretaking this one. Okay, of course not, because they were literally brainwashed to think that way. But here's the thing, is that when you are doing that to yourself, you are creating a higher and higher degree of stress inside your system. What happens when we add stress to the system? If it cannot be metabolized in real time, that stress gets stored, that stress gets pressurized, and it builds up inside, you can think of it like a big pressure bottle, and it builds and builds and builds and builds until it explodes. And then what do you have? You have emotional volatility, you have explosive reactivity, you have total shutdown of the cognitive, rational portions of the brain, because the survival bit just said, clearly this is not working, and clearly you are failing at your job. So it hits the big red hijack button, takes over the system, and then you act out in very rash, unpredictable ways. If that's the way you want to roll, then roll, right? Nobody can stop you. There's a good chance it's not going to lead where you want to go, but that's just a chance. There are situations where that's exactly how people roll, and it does get them where they want to go, because basically they're in a dysfunctional relationship, and then it builds and builds and builds, and then eventually they blow up and they just burn everything, and then they, leave. And it turns out that's the only path, the only strategy, the only mechanism they had at their disposal to get them to the point where they had enough courage or strength or wherewithal to exit the situation. That does happen. So it's not like that build up until I blow strategy is faulty, black and white across the board. No, there's times it actually works. You got to decide if that one's yours. It's hard because you end up doing things that you're like, you might regret later. It's just regret. You learn from it. There's wisdom gained. There's lessons learned. It's all good stuff. But you need to do this. You need to practice saying no. Any relationship where you can't say no is a dysfunctional relationship, period. I can't think of one. Even parent to child. Child to parent to child, parent to parent, adult to adult, between lovers, between bosses, between whatever, right? You need the ability to say no. And if that's super uncomfortable, that's where you begin. Just practice saying no. First, go into your little safe room, your isolated space, because if you have this dynamic running in your life, you're almost guaranteed to have some elements of your life where you isolate and get away from all the stress, right? So go into your safe, isolated space and just look at the wall, say the word no. No, 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 no. Say it a million different ways. Hear yourself saying it. Get familiar with the feeling of forming that word in your mouth and on your vocal cords and everything else. Get familiar with it. And then bit by bit, leave your safe space, go out into the world and practice saying it. You will probably find situations where it's easy. Do you want fries with that? No. If you can't say no to that one, well, I mean, assuming you don't want fries. I hope people understand that this is actually one of the tenets of marketing and advertising, is that they know that there's people out there that do not have easy accessibility to saying no. And so I guess sales is the word I'm looking for. And so I've literally been in sales seminars where they talk about this and they say there's people out there that just can't say no. And they're just suckers ready to be exploited. So let's go exploit them and we make profit. Yay, cha-ching. So just high pressure. Just promise a bunch of stuff, get them to sign on the dotted line. Oh, do it now, blah, 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 right? Yeah, those people can go fuck themselves. Like, seriously. It's a predatory, exploitive dynamic that is literally sitting on top of psychological and emotional wounding in order to make a profit. That's literally how it works. Find another way to describe it. So don't be those people. Don't interact with those people. And this is probably one of the best places to practice saying no. In fact, you can say no with anger. You can say no with resentment. If it feels exploitive, if it feels predatory, give them the finger, right? So practice saying no. This is the first gateway to prioritizing self and learning how to do it in a way that is not scary. You're not a bad person for saying no. Let me repeat that one. You are not a bad person for saying no. You are not a bad person if someone else has negative emotional experience because you said no. You're not a bad person if whatever you say, do, think, or whatever causes someone else to have a big panic or anger or resentment, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not your burden. You are not a bad person if that happens. You are allowed to do this. They're allowed to do it also. And if they do it and you freak out, remember this video. That's not on them to fix your emotional state. This is a dance. It's always two people dancing together. It's not right and wrong. It's not black and white. It is sharing, communicating, and trying to work together so that both people move upward and are in a better state and have more access to resources and self-improvement and, I don't know, happiness, joy, thriving in life, right? That's our goal. This doesn't happen when there's black and whites. This doesn't happen when there's rights and wrongs. You are not a bad person if you make choices for yourself first. You are a human being that is growing into, you're either already an adult or you're growing into an adult. And one of the things about becoming an adult and becoming a functional member of the tribe is you get to have some form of autonomy. You're working with the tribe, you're a member of the tribe, but you're not a slave to the tribe. Just because you feel guilt does not mean you're bad, does not mean they're right, and it doesn't mean that ruin is coming in the future. The feelings of guilt and shame that show up so powerfully in the system is just a reflection of those lessons that we learned when we were little kids. It is basically we have internalized the own critical parent. And now that voice, that model, that attachment model lives inside our mind and is basically constantly trying to enforce the rules that were needed for survival way back then. They are not needed now. They're not needed with this new person. They're not needed with this new dynamic, and they're not needed for the new you. So allow those feelings to arise. Do the thing that is hard. Face it. Hold it. Feel what it's like to feel guilty. Feel what it's like to feel shameful. And then wait. Just do nothing. Let it subside. And your nervous system will eventually learn that even though it felt terrible, even though I felt like a bad person, even though it felt absolutely terrifying that this person is going to be angry with me or think I did a bad thing, that I survived. And that's what it cares about ultimately. It only cares about the thoughts and feelings of that other person as a mechanism to achieve safety. If we can achieve safety without that person's opinions factoring into the equation, we are in a much better state. We're more stable, we're more secure, we're more happy, we thrive more, we're better parents. We actually end up contributing to the health of the tribe overall way, way better, because stable, grounded, secure parents create stable, grounded, secure children, and those children go on to be, well, superheroes. So think about that for a moment. Do the exercises. Practice. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel bad. Just don't believe it. There's no aspect of you that is bad. There's no aspect of you that is wrong. It's just a system that learned to evoke these feelings in pursuit of safety. And you have much more safety now than you ever had back then. We just have to teach your system that it's there and available. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you all for listening. I wish you the best. Peace.